Okay, so now here we have Magic. The sequencer board is all filled in with capacitors, resistors, and diodes. Okay, so the whole thing is done. The next thing to do is to put the connectors on the back that go from the two boards, right? These two boards plug in the back here, and so they have these 3-pin connectors, one connector per gate. So there's the gate pin, the grid pin. Then there's a power pin of some sort, ground or +5 or one of the high voltages. And then on the top of the 3 pins is the output from the voltage dividers that go to the plate. So what you want to do is put these connectors on the back here. But you want to make sure they're nice and perpendicular and that they will actually, one of these two boards will actually be able to plug into those connectors. So we take one of the two boards without the tubes in it, of course, and we put the connectors on the tube board. Just stick them on here, and this will make sure that the tube boards will actually fit in. Will fit when you plug it into the rectifier board. So you just have to stick these in here. Otherwise, if one of them's not quite perpendicular, it'll be a pain in the neck to try to fit the tube board into it. This way here, they plug in pretty easy if you do this first. Otherwise, it's really hard to get these 3-pin connectors on there. Plus, it would be hard; they would fall out when you try to solder them to the other side and all of that stuff. So this makes it pretty easy. You just fill them in with these here. I'll just show doing one, of course. I'm not going to do all 10 here on the video. And just fill in one here. Alright, so you just got 16 of these, of course, because each of these little tube boards has 8 tubes, 16 gates. So there's 16 of these connectors. So you can fill them all in here. Then all that's after this for the big crystal rectifier board is to fill in the edge connector pins. And I do that last before I do these because you want to minimize flipping the board over because these has a bunch of pins sticking out and might get bent. So you want to leave that to the very end. So you minimize messing around with this big board and bending those pins. Because if those get bent, then you got to bend them back with pliers, and you don't want to get to that. Okay, so now there's a little outline, so they really only go one way. Of course, it doesn't matter. You could theoretically put them in like this if you want offset, but then you'd have to fill in these ones on the edge anyway. So it's easiest just to start here, and you might have to wiggle it around a little bit. Get this to fit on here. Let's see, just wiggle it a little bit, and eventually it should pop in place, or maybe you have to move one of these around with your finger a little bit, but there, that went in pretty good. So now it's a matter of holding it down, not letting it pop out. Oh, you can't see this off the camera. Now, I just get it flipped over here. And then it's a matter of holding it down a little bit so that it doesn't pop out while you're soldering it, and get a couple on the corner first and try not to let it pop out. Let's see, oh yeah, I'll get this all on the camera here, the one I'm doing, get it on the camera here. So here I'm holding down a little pressure, and here's one of the corner pins, so I'll get that first. Move the corner pins, there we go. And go down here and get the opposite corner. Because, of course, you don't want this popping out or being crooked or anything. Yeah. I'll go get the 4 corners now. Get the 2 opposite corners. Pushing down on the board here to make sure it's down tight as it can be. And get this one. Anyway, that's the main idea of doing it. Is just to use one of the 2 boards to hold those pins in place. And then you can, of course, solder these off. It's pretty simple from here once you get the four corners, and that's the main point. Get these soldered on here. Should be 48 pins, right? 3 pins times 16. Make sure you get them all. That's about all there is to it. You just want to do these one at a time here. The next will be the edge connectors. And that's it for the board. So you have the diodes, capacitors, and resistors. And you have these connectors here on the back. And then the connectors on the edge. And that's it. So that's all there is to these big boards. Not too terribly complicated. It's just a lot of repetition of the same stuff. This little circuit is on the web page. Oh yeah, I have a backward diode. I put one backward diode in when I did the first one, and everything worked except the increment accumulator instruction. Did not increment the accumulator, it just kept it the same. I can't remember where the diode was exactly. It probably was on the ALU board somewhere. Yeah, out of everything, it's just the increment accumulator instruction didn't work. Could have just left it that way and programmed around it, but that would be silly. That was easy to... I can't remember how long. It probably took me an hour to track it down, though. But yeah, I used the test paddles and I found it. Test the board. Anyway, alright, so one more row to do here. This last row, get this one in place. Alright, so that doesn't take too terribly long. Now, let's see, keep this on the camera more or less, get this flipped over. So there's one of the two boards mounted in place, right? I should be able to pull it off. The friction holds them on pretty good. There's no real need for any more mounting. Now when you put these in, with the tubes and all of that stuff, we want to make sure you get them centered on those connectors. There's no keying or anything like that, because you could set them offset by 1 or suppose 2 pins, in which case it would not work very well. Might even get a little bang out of it because of the power supply. So you want to make sure here that they're lined up. All 3 pins. And of course it should match the outline. Match this white outline. If it was offset, it wouldn't match the outline right. So that's it for putting those connectors on. So it's just a matter of repeating that for all the tube boards that go on this crystal rectifier board. And like I said, I'll make another video when I get that done. I'll make another little video of putting the edge pin connectors on, but there's no trick to that. It's just a matter of taping them on, making sure they look fairly straight because they plug into a backplane and they have to be fairly well aligned to match up with the backplane. Alright, so that's it for this video.